Hey guys, it's Edie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, we're going to be doing a read and wrap up of all the books I've read in January. So this month I've read 22 books, which I think is the most I have ever read in a single month, which is quite a lot. And that's quite crazy. So we're going to just get right into the video, and I'm just going to go through all the books that are on my January TBR, and I'm going to go through and see if I've read them, if I haven't, if I did read them, what I rated them, and things like that. So the first book from my January TBR was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I didn't end up reading this. There was no reason why, I just didn't get around to reading it. That was the same for Whiskey Business as well. I can't remember who the author is, but I'll put the little picture of the book here next to me. But I did manage to read 4 books that were in my January TBR. So the first one was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars because I did like it, but I didn't love it as much as a lot of people do. And for me, I felt like it was a reading a bit too young for me. And I thought some parts of the plot were like really interesting. I really did like it, but then I thought some parts were a bit dragged out. And I didn't get bored, but I wasn't losing interest either, but I wasn't enjoying them as much. I hope that makes sense. But I've read the Caraval trilogy by her, and I thought the writing in that was very beautiful, and this is just as beautiful, the writing. And there's a scene, I believe, near the beginning of this book where you get to see, I don't know if you get to see Donatella and Scarlett, or you get to hear about them more or something like that, because I absolutely love them and I love seeing to get a little bit more of them. I forgot to explain what this is, because this book basically follows Evangeline, and the love of her life ends up marrying someone else. Then she cuts a deal with Jax, what's he called? I've forgotten what he's called. Does it say on here? Prince of Hearts, is that what he's called? I don't know, something like that. And she has to do these things to make the people who are marrying not marry in a way, I think. But Jax can't like kiss anyone because his kiss is fatal. Also, Jax does first appear in the Caraval trilogy. That's why it is recommended to read that trilogy before this one. But I feel like you don't have to read it, but you will get some minor things about that trilogy in this book. But I don't think it would take away much from the Caraval trilogy if you were to read that after this one, or not even read it at all. The next book from my January TBR that I read was Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie, and I ended up giving this book a 5 stars. I absolutely loved it, and I love Lillian Lowe. Basically, this book is the 3rd book in their series, and it's the 3rd book in the whole Addicted Calloway universe. And this book is basically them being sober and trying not to relapse into their old habits. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil any of the rest, like the 1st and 2nd book, and say things that could maybe be a spoiler for that. But that's basically this one, their journey on trying to stay sober and not be addicted to what they were addicted to previously. And this book took me on an emotional roller coaster. Like, the point that Lydia and Lowe were in at the beginning of the 1st book and the point they're in now, the growth that they've both had is pretty phenomenal. And I believe they have 2 more books left in their part of the series. So I'm kind of scared to see what is to come, because I have a feeling what could happen. But it kind of makes me sad and scared to read it. And seeing Lowe be able to control his addiction and being to help Lily be able to control hers as well was just really sweet. And they've just come such a long way since the 1st book, and I know they've got a lot more to come in the next 2 books. Something happens during this book, and it's this mystery of who done this, who would do that to them. And when you find out at the end who done this, I would not have guessed that person. It was a bit of a shock to me. The 3rd book I read from my January TBR was Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. And I read this in my 24-hour readathon, so if you want to see the whole video, and there'll be other books in this that I go more in depth of, you can click with a little icon in one of the corners. But this follows Evie, is it Evie? Eve and Shep, and Eve ended up having a one-night stand with this guy that she works at the bar she went to, and then I think a couple weeks later she finds out she's pregnant and it's his kid. And she goes there and tells him, and he ends up having a girlfriend, and him and the girlfriend weren't together when they had the one-night stand. But then Eve tells her best friend, and her best friend was going to go with her to tell the father of the kid, but due to circumstances she doesn't end up going with her. So Evie's best friend's brother, Shep, ends up going with her, and then they start to form this like attachment to each other, and it ends up being like those two becoming a couple and not the father of the child, which I feel like is quite an interesting take on like the accidental like pregnancy trope, because usually when it's accidental pregnancy, it's the father of the child becomes a like romantic interest, but in this one it's not, and I find that really unique, and I just thought it was so beautifully written, this story. And like some of the moments when Eve was pregnant and Shep was there, it was the most sweetest and like wholesome things, and I enjoyed like all the character development and everything that was going on, and I really loved this, and I'm definitely going to be reading more of Cara Bastone's like books, because this is the first book I've read of hers and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think I said what star rating I gave this. I gave this 4.5 stars. So the final book that I read from my January TBR was The Fake Mate by Laura Ferguson. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and this is basically a fake dating, because they're both like werewolves, and Noah is like an alpha, but he's been hiding it from like the board of like doctors, because they both work in the hospital, and for whatever reason, I'm not too sure on this, alphas can't work like that unless they're mated, for whatever reason. And Mackenzie, her like, I believe is it her grandparents are really like wanting her to like meet someone, and all like the dates her grandparents have set her up on haven't been successful, and then one day they both like meet each other at work, and then they end up becoming this pact where they're gonna like, because he needs to fake to the board that he's like a mated like alpha, and he does that with Mackenzie. So it's a fake dating, it's paranormal romance because they're both werewolves. And I've read quite a few books now by Lorna Ferguson, and I absolutely love all of them, and she's definitely going to become like an autobiography author, because I just think they're so fun, and this was so much fun. I had such a good time, and the spice in this was very interesting, let's just say that, because if you read like a werewolf romance, notting, that's what I'm gonna say. And this also had me giggling at quite a few moments throughout this book. Now I'm just gonna go through all the other books that I've read in the month. The next 2 books that I picked up were in the rest of the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I can never say that word sometimes. And it is The Ballad of Never After and A Curse for True Love. And I gave them both 3.75 stars. And this just carries on the rest of the like series for the Once Upon a Broken Heart. So I can't really say much about them because otherwise it will spoil it, I feel like. But they just carry right on after each book. And I feel the same about the Once Upon a Broken Heart as well as these ones, that I enjoyed parts of it, but I do feel like it's written a bit too young for me. I'm probably not the target audience, but I still liked aspects of it. And I feel like there was a lot of hype around this series, and for me it didn't quite live up to the hype, but I still think it was a good series. I don't think it was bad, it's just I don't think it was for me. So the next book I actually listened to, because it's an audiobook and it's only available as an audiobook, it was Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. And basically it's like they're both like video game like makers or animators or something along the lines of that, and I believe the companies, like 2 companies merge, and they like instantly, the 2 sides keep butting heads, so they end up going to this like little retreat to try and bring everyone together. You could say it's like dislike to lovers, because they don't get along at first and they have different opinions and there's tension, and I did have a really good time while reading it, because it's a really short audiobook. Because I read it, let me sort out the lighting first. Is that better? I think it is, I don't know, but I read it on like a 3.5 hour car journey, and I listened to it all in there, and I just had such a fun time. It's classic Ali Hazelwood writing, and the spice in this was, it was good. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. And I feel like if you're looking for like an audiobook to listen to on like a short journey, well, that's not really a short journey, 3 hours isn't, but any sort of road trip or anything like that around that sort of hours, this is really good to listen to, because it's fun, it's engaging, I had a good time. And I don't think I said what I rated this. I ended up rating it 4 stars. So the next book I read was The Game Changer by Lorna Ferguson, and this is like an age gap hockey sports romance, brother's best friend, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. And basically Ian has like this really bad like breakup where he needs like some good PR after it, and Dahlia is very well known for her like baking show. She has quite a lot of like good press around her, So they end up having this deal where he goes on the baking show, and then they kind of end up in this like fake dating relationship. And I feel like this has everything you want from like a hockey or like sports romance, because it was cute, it was funny, there's a few emotional moments, and it had some really good spice scenes, especially changing room shower scene. That's all I'm going to say about it. And I just really loved the chemistry between them, and like all the moments Dolly was there, really there for like Ian, was some of the like the sweetest and cutest moments. And I feel like Lana Ferguson's writing is just so easy to follow along with, and I just really enjoy her like stories and how she tells them. Next two books I'm going to put up at the same time, because it's kind of like a prequel and actual book, and I read them on my Kindle, so I don't have like the actual like copies of them. And it is The Unwanted Love and The Unwanted Wife by Elle Still. And The Unwanted Love I gave 3.5 stars, and The Unwanted Love, what did I give it? 4.25. And basically The Unwanted Love is like a little prequel you can read before the first one. You don't have to, but it gives you a bit of an insight to the characters and like a past thing that happened between them, because I don't want to say anything else, because it's literally, I think it is less than like 100 pages, or maybe just over 100 pages, so if I explain more of the plot to you guys, it will probably spoil it. But I did enjoy it. For what it was good, because it's really hard to rate like little prequels and novellas that are that short, because they don't have much like substance in them. But I thought it was like a good setup for the rest of the like series. The Unwanted Wife is like a brother's best friend marriage of convenience, because they end up getting in this marriage of convenience because I can't remember the characters' names. This is really bad. I can't remember the life of me for the female main character's name, but she has this like bakery and it's not going so well. So then Nathan Davenport, he's like from the Davenport family. They're really rich, really wealthy, and they had the incident that happened in the prequel happen. They haven't seen each other since, I believe. He comes to the little bakery and says, I can help you, I can give you money to keep it afloat, but I believe he says you have to be my like fake wife. And I did guess something was going to happen to a side character, and I was right, I did guess correctly, but I still kind of shocked when it did happen. And also the ending to do with this character had me in tears. I wasn't crying, but I had like tears in my eyes. And this book does have a lot of spice in it, so I feel like if you don't like books with spice in, you won't like this book, because it does have quite a bit in. So the next book I read was Mistress of Lies by K.M. Ernite, and this is like a vampire fantasy romantasy. And basically the main female character, Shan, she's like a blood worker, and her father's like quite, I guess, a high up blood worker, and she ends up like killing him to become the head of the family and the head of that part of the blood working, I don't know how to describe it, section, I guess you could say. There ends up being killings of people, and they kind of like try and investigate it, her and Samuel, and like they end up meeting the king and one of the, I think he's something to do with the king guards or something like that, because I think the king's a vampire, I'm not really sure. But Shan and Samuel end up kind of having a thing, and Samuel has a thing with one of the king's people, let's just call them that. I feel like I'm doing a really bad job of explaining this, but I always find it so hard to explain like fantasy books. But I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars because I did enjoy it, but I feel like it did have a bit more potential to give, and I did really like the storyline and all the characters, and I feel like one of the strong parts of the book was how like diverse all the characters were. So I did like the romance between the characters, but I feel like I just wanted a tiny bit more of something, I don't know what. And I will definitely be carrying on the series because I really did like it, and I just want to find out what happens next and see where this series takes it, because I feel like this does have a lot of potential to be quite enjoyable for me. The next book I read was Freaking Romance Volume 1, and I never know how to pronounce the name of the author and I believe the illustrator, but it's there. I want to say it's like Sanidors. That is definitely wrong, but that's what I'm going with. I ended up giving this 4.25, and this is basically like a graphic novel manga sort of book. It follows this girl, and she basically just moves into this new like apartment because her family, well mainly her dad, has like disowned her because she doesn't want to go to like university to do, I believe it's something like a doctor or something like that. She doesn't want to do that, so he kind of kicks her out and she has to find her own way in life now. She goes to view the apartment and it's like known as being haunted, and she sees something in the mirror, and that's what I'm going to say because it is quite a quick read because it is like a manga graphic novel and it's easy to follow along with. I thought the art style of this was really beautiful. Let me just show you these pages. These are kind of like the art style it is, and I just thought it was so pretty, and it did make me laugh out loud quite a few times, and I enjoyed like the story. I found it quite interesting, and I have read the second book and I've really enjoyed it. That's all I'm going to say about it because that will be in February's wrap up because I read it in February. But I just really enjoyed the story, and I am really excited to read the third one because that comes out, I believe it comes out sometime this year, maybe in March. The next book I picked up was Where's Molly by H.D. Carlton, and this basically follows Molly, and if you've read like the Cat and Mouse duet, which is Hunting and Haunting Adeline, you get a bit of like a snippet you get of Molly, which are her letters when Adeline is somewhere. And I always found that quite interesting, and I always was like, oh, I wonder what happened to her, what's her story? And you get her story in this, and she's kind of just had to like run away from her past life. That's basically what this is. I did give this 3.5 stars because I really enjoyed getting to see, like, read Molly's story and seeing what her life was like, and I thought there were some parts of this were quite interesting, but I just didn't feel the greatest connection to the characters in this because this does have like a romance in it as well, and I wasn't too invested in the romance story, but I thought it was still good. I did like it. So the next book we have got Desire or Defense by Leah Brewer, and this is a hockey romance, and this follows a defenseman, Mitch, and Andy. And Andy has recently just had to move back home to look after her brother because her parents have sadly passed away, and her brother is really like into playing hockey, so he goes to this like hockey club. Mitch ends up being a coach there because he's just been put on like a, I want to say it's like a some sort of suspension from playing games because of something that happened, I believe, during one of the games he was playing. So during his suspension he's being made to go coach like little kids and do hockey to try and bring his public reputation back up again. And like the first day that he's there like coaching them, he's like having a go at this kid for something that happened, and Andy comes storming on the ice, starts yelling at Mitch saying you can't talk to him like that, and it ends up being her little brother that he's talking to him about that, and then he ends up individually coaching Andy's little brother to help him, and it just kind of evolves from there. And I gave this 5 stars. I did not expect to like this as much as I did, and I thought Mitch's character developments was so good because at the beginning, like I said, he was quick to anger, and his first line of, I guess, defense was anger and fighting, like that's why he got his suspension. And then you slowly see him throughout the book realizing he shouldn't, like, that shouldn't be his first emotions. He's like discovering how to like deal with his emotions, and I really loved, like, at the beginning and throughout quite most of the book really, Andy and Mitch had this like bickering like flirtiness to them, and I was just so there for it. I was kicking my feet, I was giggling, I was feeling all the emotions, and the relationship Mitch had with Andy's like little brother was like the sweetest thing and most wholesome thing, and I just really enjoyed this whole book, the whole dynamic, the storyline, just everything about it. I really just did enjoy, and I just had such a good time while reading it. And this is the first book in the, does it say? I don't know what this series is called, but I know it's the first, DC Eagles Hockey book 1, and I know there's a prequel because in this book there's a couple that's already together and their book is the prequel, so I really want to read that, and I'll only read all the other books because I just love the whole team and the whole vibe of it all. The next book I read was The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, and I ended up giving this 4 stars, and this basically follows Hannah, who is this like bodyguard, and she works for a company, and like the first chapter her mother has passed away and she's just gone to her funeral, and she's come back to work and she wants to get back into work straight away, and her boyfriend at the time also works for the same company as a bodyguard, but he ends up breaking up with her, and she isn't getting sent on this trip to do like a bodyguard sort of thing, and instead of her boyfriend, because it was originally her and her boyfriend were going to go on this trip to be bodyguards, but her best friend gets sent on this trip. That's what I'm going to say about that now, because if I say anything more it will spoil it. But Jack, the MMC in this, is like a famous actor. He done a role in one movie and then I can't remember exactly why, but after that he didn't want to do anything else. He like hid away from the world. He doesn't want to do the sequel. He's trying to get out of it, but he has to come back to his like hometown, which I believe is somewhere in Texas, maybe Dallas or something like that. And because he's so famous, he needs like a bodyguard when he comes back. So I can't remember if it's him or his team, contacts the company that Hannah works for, and Hannah ends up becoming the main like bodyguard on this like working thing. What do they call it? Job. I guess they call it a job, don't they? And when he goes back to see his family, he has this stalker and he doesn't want his family to know about it. He also doesn't want them to know he has a bodyguard. So when he goes back to his like family ranch, he gets Hannah to be like his fake girlfriend. So this is like a fake dating bodyguard romance, and I really liked it because usually the bodyguard is the guy, but it was the girl in this, and I thought that's a really interesting take on it. When Jack first met Hannah, he was like, oh, you're not... He didn't basically expect her to be the bodyguard, and then he found out, and then she done like something to prove to him that she was a really good bodyguard. And she done that quite a few moments throughout the book when people will question her. Oh, you can't be a bodyguard, but she'd do like something on them, pin them down, I guess. And I was like, yes, go girl, girl power. As cringy as that is, that's what I was thinking. And I feel like I would just love to see this as like a movie, because like as I was reading it, I could just picture it as a movie, and I was like, this would be such a good one. So maybe one day we will, but I did really enjoy it. Next book I read was Brielle and the Bear Once Upon a Time by Salome Drucker. And this is like another graphic novel manga book, and I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. Because this is basically almost a fairy tale romance that has like books and drama in it basically. And I did think it was really cute, and I think like the illustrations are really cute. I just feel like it wasn't for my age range. This is a YA book, and I feel like it's definitely on the younger YA scale, but I still did quite enjoy it while reading it. And I just really like the diversity of all the characters in it, and I feel like if you want something quick, easy, cute, with some cute illustrations in it, I feel like you will probably enjoy it, even though it might not be in the right age category for you. The next book I read was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This was like infinity stars, 6 stars, 1,000 stars, all the stars, because it was phenomenal. I can't really say much about the storyline because I don't want to spoil it for people, but if you do want to see like a reading vlog I done of it, it's got full spoilers in it, so be warned. If you do watch it, there's spoilers in it. I'll put it up on the screen so you can go watch it, because you can see my reactions live while reading it, and I just had the time of my life while reading it. This was definitely my most anticipated read of the whole entire year. Even though it comes out in January, I just loved it so much. Like, this whole book, the love like Xaden and Violet have between each other was just phenomenal. And I thought Xaden in like the first and second book was good, but him in this book, it was amazing. Like, there were so many times that I cried, I laughed. The ending, all I'm going to say about it, it's not going to be spoilers, so you don't have to click off or skip if you haven't read it. I sobbed. I did. I did not see that coming, but then when I did read it, I was like, oh, it kind of hints at it almost throughout the book. That's all I'm going to say about it, because I feel like I could sit here and just talk about it. But if you want to see me talk about it, you can go watch that video. The next book I read was That One Night by Emily Raff, and this is the prequel for Pucking Around. This one is basically Jake and Rachel's how they met, and how they met was a one-night stand. And this is basically all that book is. It has spice in it. It has quite a bit of spice in it for the length of this book, because I believe it's not even just, I believe it's just over 100 pages. And considering it is a prequel and it's not very long, I did really like it. I liked getting to see how they met and how the catalysts of the next book, Pucking Around, kind of started, you could say. Did I say what I rated this? I don't think I did. I gave this 3.5 stars. The next book I read was Pucking Around by Emily Raff, and this is a book you read after the prequel. You don't have to read the prequel, but it's kind of just fun and you just read it for the vibes. But this basically follows Rachel, Jake, Caleb, and I can never say the other guy's name because it's like a Finnish name. Let me get it up so I can actually look at it and try and pronounce it. Ilmar? People call him Mars though. And it's like a polyamorous relationship. and I just thought the whole dynamic was very interesting to read a relationship like that. And there is a lot of spice in this, and the spice in this is very, very heavy on spice, if that makes sense. Rachel becomes like the team on the doctor team for the team. That makes sense. And Jake what does he position he plays? He's one of the hockey players. It was saying here it does. He is the defenseman, and Ilmar or Mars is the goalie, and then Caleb is like an equipment manager. So they all work for like the same hockey team, and it's first like Jake and Rachel, then Caleb comes into the mix, then Ilmar comes into the mix. But I did really enjoy it, and I feel like this is kind of maybe a guilty pleasure book to read, and I did really end up liking the dynamic of the relationship, even though it's not your usual thing, because usually I don't like why choose, because usually the person I like with the lady doesn't end up getting with it's the other person, if that makes sense. But I don't know, I just really liked this. And even though it does have multiple like love interests, I didn't find myself gravitating towards just one of them. I liked them all. Also, I did give this a 4.5 stars because I don't think I mentioned what I gave it. The next book I read was Pucking After Volume 1, and this is like a little novella to Pucking Around, and it just carries on their story about how things are later on in life for them. And I just really enjoyed it, and I liked seeing them later on and what was happening with them. And I ended up giving this 4 stars because I feel like if you did like the characters and the storyline than the Pucking Around, I feel like this is worth the read because you just get a bit more of them. The next book I read was Collide by Balcabra, and this is basically a college sports hockey romance that follows, I believe it's Aiden and Summer. That's the names. And Summer's basically having to do this like project on the hockey team, and because Aiden said, oh, I was responsible for this party, Aiden is the one who ends up having to do it, and he's the team captain of the hockey team. And I thought this was alright, I did like it, but I just didn't feel that connected to the characters. My camera just died, but anyway, I did enjoy it, it just wasn't my favourite. And I liked how caring Aiden was, and how there for Summer he was, but I just wasn't Summer's biggest fan. But I still kind of had a good time while reading it. I ended up giving this a 3 stars, and I am interested in carrying on the series because I know the second book is already out now. I believe it's called Spiral, and it's a hockey player ballerina. That just really interests me, I don't know why. I believe it also might be fake dating, and I love fake dating. I am excited to carry on this series. The next book I read was The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy. This book doesn't come out till 25th of February, but I've read it because NetGalley kindly accepted the ARC request that I requested for it. And this one basically follows Beckett, Will and Charlotte, and Will and Beckett are on the hockey team, the Bri-U hockey team. Let's just say they like to have girls at the same time, so it'd be one girl on them at the same time, and I feel like that's the simplest way to explain it. And then Charlotte ends up going on this dating like app, and she's talking to like matching people, and she matches with somebody called Lars and I believe it's just called B. She doesn't know who they are, and she starts talking to them individually, and it's getting quite steamy. She goes to Bri-U like university college, and she has a class with Will, or she gets along with Will alright, but she does not like Beckett at all. They dislike each other, they bicker, and she does not know who they are. They do not know who each other are. They talk online, but they kind of know each other in real life. And then she does just like discover it herself, and she is the one who's like, oh, it's them. Those are the 2 guys I'm talking to, because it's kind of like all anonymous. They hadn't posted their faces on this dating like thing, so they had no clue who they were talking to. And that's kind of basically the main storyline of it, and it just follows how they start navigating and start having a relationship with 3 people. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars because I feel like I had a lot of like high hopes for this book, because the first and second book in this series I both gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved them, but this one it just didn't quite hit the same. But I did enjoy reading it, and I liked getting the cameos from the whole like Elle Kennedy like Bri-U universe, because Blake ends up being like Charlotte's like little, I believe they call it, because Charlotte's in the sorority and she's quite high up in it, and I guess Blake is a freshman, and Blake is kind of intertwined in the Elle Kennedy universe because her parents are from the Off-Campus series, so you get like snippets of like her talking about her parents, and especially her dad, and I absolutely loved seeing like well, you didn't get to see him, you just heard about him being very protective of Blake, which I very much enjoyed that. I really want just like a whole like series of the second gen of the Off-Campus series, or even the Briar series, like all their kids, and I just absolutely love that. I would eat that up. And you kind of get like snippets of Will and Becca in the like of last book, I believe, the Dixon Rule, and I was expecting a lot of like spicy scenes, and there was quite a lot. They were very steamy, very, I don't know what, but yeah, there was a lot, and it was very interesting. And I feel like this book was kind of lacking in the hockey aspect of it. There wasn't as much as I wanted to. I wanted a bit more like team togetherness, if that makes sense. And also like it wasn't like a breakup, but there was kind of like a conflict at the end, and I just wasn't the biggest fan of it, and I thought it came out of a bit out of nowhere. I would still recommend this book because I did still have a good time while reading it. It's just I'm being very nitpicky on it because I feel like this did have a bit more potential than it could have been, if that makes sense. So those are the 22 books that I have read in January. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Also in the comments put which book was your favourite book you read in January. Mine was definitely Onyx Storm. If you haven't already, do subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!